Hello everyone, and welcome to this short webinar on DBArtisan. DBArtisan is a tool by IDERA software. It's a multi-platform tool for database administrators. We connect to many different platforms. The advantages of DBArtisan are that you can learn one user interface and manage all of your different platforms using one tool versus having to learn each individual, perhaps vendor-provided tool or other third-party tool that only allow connection to one data source. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. So we can see here that I have several SQL Server instances, and I also have an Oracle instance here. Let's just take a quick look at this. Well, first off, let me just start off with a little bit of housekeeping here and explain the different panels that we see. This is the data source Navigator here on the left. And on the right here, we have the Data Source Explorer. That consists of two panels. It has a panel that lists your instances here, as well as what will be some more information that we're going to see once we get a connection established to that data source. So we're going to talk about registering data sources. So you can choose data source and register. I'm just going to click edit here because we've got these already filled out. It'll be a little bit easier to understand what needs to happen. So this is the different platforms that we support natively, and I'm going to connect to this SQL Server instance here, so I would select that database platform. Then I can click Next, and I go on to the connection information. We're going to connect through TCP/IP, and I'm going to list the IP address here. If your network will resolve the host name, then you can use the host name. Mine doesn't, so I have to put the IP address in this instance. And then the port, obviously, this 1433 is the default port. And then I could give it a data source name that's independent of the host name. So if you wanted to call it something that was a little bit more relevant for a human to understand, you can certainly do that. And then security parameters, here's where you'd provide your login credentials. We do allow you to select an auto connect feature so that you don't have to enter the user ID and password every time. And it does encrypt that password. So you're fully protected there from a security standpoint. I can also use the option to connect using Windows authentication. So if your system allows you, using LDAP for example, to connect using that user ID, you can simply check this and you don't need to fill any of this out. It will automatically connect you. In some different platforms, you may have to enter some custom driver properties or data source properties. We do allow you to establish data source groups, so we can see here that I have two. It's SQL Server and Oracle, and you can also select a category for your different instances. So this 157 box here, I've got that listed as a production server, but I could also mark it as just a default, which is basically no setting, development box, production test, QA, and then I could also customize this if I had some situation that didn't fall into one of these categories. Once you jump back up here for just a second, I did want to mention that once you get to this point and provide whatever credentials you want, it's a good idea to click Test Connection, and it'll let you know whether you succeeded or not. That's handy to be able to check your ability to connect before you leave the data source registration wizard. Okay, so at this point, I'm done. I'm not going to edit anything here. I'm just going to click Finish. Now that doesn't connect you. That's just setting up the data source in this list. And you can see here, if I select these, okay, I can right-click at this point now, and I can choose Connect. If I had a similar data source that I wanted to register, I could also use Register Like, and it would basically create create another data source and give me some of the basic configurations that we have set for this one. Of course, I might have to enter some new information like a new host name and things like that. But generally, that's a little bit of a time saver there as well. But I'm just going to go ahead and click Connect. And then once you do, you'll notice that there's a little caret, red caret that pops in here. Okay, that indicates you're connected. And I can also connect to multiple data sources at a time. So if I wanted to connect to this Oracle instance, I could connect to that also. So you don't have to just be restricted to having a connection for one instance at a time. even on multiple platforms, you can connect to different instances. So this is our data source navigator. I can select an instance here like this, and it doesn't really affect my Explorer window. My Explorer window is governed by the item I have selected here, and these two things look very similar, but there are some differences. You notice that when I select this, nothing really changes, but when I select the instance over here, there's a change in my Explorer panel that shows the kind of the overview of that instance. It also changes the selected data source up here at the top, and this is important because in here, I can go through things and I can look at different types of objects and things like that without affecting the work that's going on here in the Explorer. But if I come over here and change, then now that changes this. In this example here, this 114 box is marked as a QA box, and GIM is my default database when I log in, so that's automatically selected. If you wanted to select a different database on this instance, you can select from this drop down. I could also select a different data source here as well, so I could choose Oracle and it'll switch me down to this over here. So and just be aware that this functionality in these two drop downs is controlled either through the Explorer or through the selection in these drop downs. I want to talk a little bit more about what's available in the Data Source Navigator, though, because there are some things here that that you can do that don't, maybe you don't need to dig into, some of the more granular details that are available here in the Explorer. So, for example, if I wanted to create a new database, okay, I can select Databases, right-click, and choose Create, and that's going to give me a wizard to allow me to create a new database. Most anything that you'll do with DBArtisan that is along the lines of, creating new things, creating new indexes, new users, new tables, new columns, we're going to give you a wizard to be able to do that so that you don't have to remember, maybe all the steps. You don't have to remember the exact syntax. If you were going to write the DDL yourself, you'll go through this wizard and you see down here at the bottom, there's the last one in these wizards is going to be the DDL view. So the wizard is not going to execute the DDL directly and just kind of create it on the fly. It will give you the DDL, and at that point, many times during the course of a normal workday, you're gonna might want to make some changes that would probably be best suited to be run during a maintenance period. So we give you the DDL, and we'll allow you to run that at your convenience whenever you would like to do it. So I could create a new database here. As I said, if I come in here, right-click is your friend. Okay, so if you select an item in either the Explorer or the Navigator, it will give you the options that you're going to have available at that point. So it's context sensitive. Some of the things we can do, you see here that I could update statistics. I could set this schema to offline or online. I could drop the table. I could run an extraction. I could open it up. There's a number of different things I could do here. I could back up and do backups and restores from here. If I drill down in here a little bit more, I'm going to just take a look at the tables here. So we click on tables. Again, here's a wizard, create, okay? And then here's the scheme or the wizard that I would use to create a table, okay? So you give it the name, you fill in some information about the storage if you'd like to, provide the columns at some point, indexes, constraints, and then eventually, again, you get down to the DDL view. I can also keep drilling down here, so we're going to take a look at this broker table. I'm going to choose the columns. So here's my columns in my broker table. Again, if I need to add a new column, I can do that. That's easy to do. You do that using the wizard here. I can select a new column here, so I could add a bookmark. I could copy the object name. If I double click on it, nothing really happens. Okay, so that's about the extent of what you can do to these things in the Navigator window. Okay, the Navigator window is handy because it lets you take a look at things over here, and maybe for example, I want to be looking at the columns in this table because I'm creating another table and I want to see what the columns are and the data types. Maybe there's some work I'm doing where I need to create a foreign key in a new table, and I can do things like that over here. So I have the ability to see things of interest here while working and doing more advanced things over here in the Explorer window. So let's just take a look now, and obviously, databases we touched on, security. If I wanted to add new logins or server roles, again, all these things are going to be wizard driven. I'm going to go ahead and close the data source navigator at this point, and we're going to just focus on the Explorer for the rest of this. So unlike the navigator, my Explorer is going to give me more details. So I said earlier, if I click on these instances, it gives me an overview, and it's going to affect this drop-down selections up here as well. As I drill down into my databases, we can see here that if I click on tables here, it doesn't expand it here. It gives me, again, more information over here in this right-hand panel. So now my Explorer is going to expose more information for me than the Navigator did. So now I can see the number of rows. I can see the file tables and file groups. If I click on one of these tables or double click on it, it's going to open up the properties of that table. So I can see my columns, my actual properties, data compression, indexes. Okay, so it's going to show me all my indexes, my permissions, any dependencies, my DDL view. Okay, it's even going to give me a view into the data. If I want to scroll through that on a page-by-page basis, this table only has 23 items, so it doesn't get into the pagination up here, but you could certainly do that. And then finally, if this table is involved in a lot of queries, maybe that aren't using indexes, and this is just running on a VM in my environment, so it's not going to show that, but it will show you if you have indexes that are missing based on kind of things that have been going on with these tables. So this is a very useful section to be able to go through this quickly and see the different things that would be important to a DBA. And this is available regardless of whether it would be SQL Server or Oracle. So for example, if I come down here to my Oracle instance and I choose schema and tables here, now here's a large list of tables, obviously. I'm just going to, and these columns here are sortable too, but I'm just going to type in broker and let it find me that broker table. Okay, and now here's that same user interface, even though it's an Oracle instance. We do have some different options here because it is a different database platform. So there's a few more things that Oracle provides, but the basic things are still here, like my DDL view, for example. So I still have that ability to get that information that's important. One thing I do want to point out here that I neglected to mention early on, if I click on Oracle here and I open up the schema folder set here, that may not be what you want to see, okay? And we can get around that or solve that problem because we have the ability, if I click on this options, we can organize by object owner or object type. So if I click object owner, now I come back to, not security, but schema. Now here's my different schemas. So this might be more in line with what you would expect to see in an Oracle instance, where you have your different schemas. It's just a different way of viewing things. It doesn't have as much effect here on the SQL Server because they handle database instances and databases a little bit differently than Oracle does. But just be aware in this drop-down arrow here that we can organize by object type or object owner. The same functionality for that organization option exists in my data source navigator as well as here in my data source explorer. So, and there's no reason that you can't have one way and one the other if you want to see it perhaps in two different view things in two different ways. I'm going to come back up here and select this database again. I'm going to go ahead and close this. We're going to look a little bit deeper at some of these things here. So again, indexes. If I want to see what my indexes are, I can do that. I can double click on the index. I'm essentially back to that same thing. So I've got some tabs up here that are going to give me the information that I need. Here's my DDL for my index. If I want to see what that looks like. Foreign keys, triggers, procedures. We have all this information that's available right at our fingertips, and it's a common user interface. So I can find the same information that I would expect to find under procedures. I'm going to find procedures down here in Oracle as well, and it's going to give me that information is going to be a little easier to find. Rather than having to learn, maybe 4 or 5 different tools, the UI here provides a benefit in flexibility, and it helps you be more efficient in the things that you're doing. That's just a quick overview of DBArtisan. It's a tool for database administrators to be able to manage multiple platforms with ease. You don't have to learn every different tool for every different platform that you would need to manage. You can learn one tool, learn to manage that through one user interface, and it makes life a lot easier. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. I want to thank everyone for watching this short video on DBArtisan. I think you'll find that it's a very flexible and powerful tool.